First of all, let's acknowledge that the United States having to take care not only of the Euro-Atlantic area, but also of the Indo-Pacific and of course the Middle East, has to focus attention to more than one what is so-called theater at the same time. So it is totally logical that they try, and this is happening now since 2010 basically, and President Trump clearly stated that he wants to continue with that policy and maybe even speed it up, to pivot more towards Asia. That's totally logical. And also that they want the European and Canadian NATO allies to take more of a burden, share the burden in a more equal, in a fairer way, a more. It's only logical that where the US is spending 3.5% of GDP on defense, that they want for Europe to equalize with what the US is spending. And by the way, not because the US is asking this, but as NATO as a whole, if we would stick with the original 2% goal, we cannot defend ourselves going forward in 3 to 5 years against the Russians. It is that simple. And luckily we are. And so the spending is ramping up. And then to the question, it means that it is an end-to-end policy. We have to spend more on the European-Canadian side of NATO. The US will, over time, pivot more towards Asia. This is happening already, and that will continue. That's only logical. And at the same time, the President made very clear in my meeting with him now a month ago that it is important for NATO to be also involved here. Through the IP4, so that is the Republic of Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and of course the biggest economy in the IP4 and the only G7 economy not in NATO, and that is Japan. And that's exactly why I'm here, to discuss defense industrial production, innovation, space. Japan already is participating in many NATO activities. This is not about extending Article 5 to the Indo-Pacific, so this is the collective defense clause. That will not happen. But to have a more integrated way of working together, to really have these, to acknowledge that these two areas, the Indo-Pacific and the Euro-Atlantic, cannot be seen as separate. This is exactly why I'm here.
I'm glad to hear that, particularly because it was Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who focused on the importance of the tie between the two regions soon after the war broke out in Ukraine. And he also mentioned that the war in Ukraine is not just a war in Europe, but a war which would seriously undermine the foundation of the international order. So I think the Japanese role was and still is important. And then I like to move on to another question. More difficult questions, I suppose. Can NATO expand further in future? Of course, which can include Ukraine. Are there any changes to NATO as a result of the start of the Trump administration in the United States?